Well, they look good. It's been a tough year for retailers. So a lot of high hopes were placed on this Friday, and the numbers are not all in, but it's looking pretty good. So particularly online. Online sales look like they're up 15% or so versus last year in many markets. Footfall, however, in stores was not so good. And so those continue to be flat year on year, and last year wasn't so great.
What does that tell us, though, when you think about what we've learned from all the Black Friday events in recent times? Is this really a change in consumer behavior, just more because it seems that you can track perhaps better all the sales on your screen rather than going to different stores?
It is a big change. It keeps heading in the same direction, which is that most shopping journeys are online at the outset. So 75% of journeys start online these days. They often do involve showing up at a physical retailer, but then they usually also end up at the purchase happening online as well. And it also tends to be a much more multiple retailer journey these days. So if it's a bigger purchase, most consumers are checking out 4 or 5 retailers, either online or offline, which is a big change versus 20 years ago.
So how do you read that in terms of the health or the lack of it for consumers at this stage?
Well, it's been a tough year. Consumers have consistently shown us in many ways that they're continuing to feel the cost of living crisis. But in recent survey work we saw that consumers were starting to feel more confident, and we think that's going to be reflected with a busier Christmas period this year than we saw in the last couple of years. So we're still in a tricky place, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
Good to hear. When you think about, the important events across the calendar year for retailers, how does Black Friday and Cyber Monday really compare against, say, Christmas?
It continues to get more important. So we keep having more and more concentration of sales in these couple of days. And that is tough for retailers because it just puts so much weight on the fairly narrow set of items that they have worked hard to put great deals against. I mean, what you see over the course of this last weekend is the culmination of 9 months of work by most retailers to source very good value, to market those, to watch the trends in the days before the weekend itself to see what's getting traffic. So it just keeps concentrating more sales in this precious weekend. So the stakes are high.
It's interesting because obviously Black Friday has started to become a global phenomenon, but it wasn't until quite recently. I also like to understand the role of generative AI in this context. How are perhaps retailers investing in this space to make sure that they can answer all the consumer demand over this weekend, really?
Well, there's lots of experimentation going on, but it's pretty early days for actually really seeing it at scale. So a lot of leaders are doing a good bit with this, and that means that the strongest players are getting stronger because they're taking early advantage of these kinds of new capabilities. And it's especially important now that cookies are much less easy to use because of the increased regulation of those. And so generative AI and AI is a substitute, which leaders are really leaning into. The laggards are having more trouble with it, and that's probably going to continue. The flywheel will keep spinning for the strongest players.